Konnichiwa, Nihon Cricket Pod to yokoso. Hello, and welcome to the Japan Cricket Podcast. Season 2 is here at last, and despite having the whole winter to prepare, I have been caught slightly on the hop, as the new season has technically already started, with matches taking place in Kansai last weekend. More on that in a moment. This year will be the first full season of the podcast. I am planning to mix in a few different types of episode to go alongside the interviews that I did in Season 1. I've managed to speak to quite a few guests over the winter, and they are all still to come. But I also plan to do special episodes where I dive a little deeper into a specific competition or tournament. This episode is one of those where myself and the JCA Community Cricket Manager, Dhugal Bedingfield, discuss the Japan Cricket League Division 1 and assess every team involved. It's not a very scientific assessment, I have to confess. The JCA Division 1 itself gets underway this coming Saturday, April the 2nd, and there will be matches live streamed throughout the year, starting with the defending champions Chiba Sharks taking on the 2020 runners-up, the Alpha Quashers, on Saturday the 9th of April. So please do subscribe to the Japan Cricket YouTube channel to make sure that you know when the matches are on. The aim is to stream one match per round, and although the schedule doesn't quite allow for that this year, we do get pretty close. So, a quick roundup of matches played last weekend. I don't plan to mention every game that takes place throughout the season, but when looking at Division 1 of the Kansai Japan Cup, one match really leapt off the page. It was the Osaka Derby, as the Osaka Lions took on the Osaka Kings, and it was the Lions captain, Chanaka Dushmantha, who played what will likely be a contender for the Japan Cup innings of the year. He made a slightly ridiculous 149 not out off just 71 balls, as his team posted 220 for 1 from their 20 overs, and unsurprisingly went on to win that game by the hefty margin of 105 runs. So well played, Chanaka. In the other Division 1 match, the Kyoto Super Lions defeated the Kobe Hawks by 23 runs in a slightly more low-scoring contest. And my spies down there tell me that there was a fair bit of rain around Kansai last weekend, so I think the Division 1 teams got the best of the conditions. All right, well, that's enough of me talking to myself. It's time to hear what Dougal has to say about the Japan Cricket League Division 1 season.
It's Season 2 of the Japan Cricket Podcast. How very exciting. It's also the start of the 2022 Japan Cricket season. Fast approaching, just around the corner, whichever metaphor you want to choose. And to discuss all things Japan Cricket season, I decided to bring in a man who has been spending most of the last few months doing all the scheduling, approving teams, putting together the rules and regulations and all the Japan competitions. Dhugal Bedingfield, welcome back onto the Japan Cricket Podcast.
Yes, my life's been that boring over the last 3 months. It's just buried in spreadsheets. Good to be here. The sun's out, spring's in the air, and cricket's just around the corner.
Yeah, not too far away. Well, the place to start really is away from Japan. There's one story that kind of dominated the off-season, and that is the sad passing of Mr. Shane Warne. And since this is a cricket podcast and I have a Victorian with me, it made sense to just talk a little bit about the great leg spinner. Dougal, as a fellow Victorian, tell us your early memories of Warne and how he impacted you as a cricket fan.
Yeah, it's been a tough couple of years as a Victorian cricket fan. Passing of Dean Jones, first of all, and now Shane Warne. Probably the two kind of defining Victorian cricketers of my generation. And it's just extremely sad. So many memories of Shane Warne when in the 90s when I was growing into just becoming a cricketer. And it's hard to describe really what a cultural phenomenon he was in Australia, and in particular in Victoria. It was almost like we were watching this living legend, and we kind of all sensed that, perhaps we're watching the greatest bowler of all time, and there was something really special about it. So extremely sad to hear of his passing at quite an early age, you would say.
Yeah, just 52. I mean, from an English perspective, I saw him as a lot of people did on the world stage with the ball of the century was what really got everyone's attention. And, this is a guy who took an art of cricket that was basically gone and made it essential in every cricket team for the last 30 years. Hard to think of anyone who's had a bigger impact than that. And even as an English kid watching him tear us apart, even I was bowling leg spin as a 14-year-old. So there must have been some kind of Warne influence there. And it didn't look that hard what he did, did it? He made something very, very difficult look pretty easy, and seemed to live a great life off it. So, from all of Japan cricket, RIP to Warne.
Yeah, that's coincidence. I was actually a leg spinner in high school as well. So that's two of us. And turns out it was pretty hard. And I later focused on the batting. But he did inspire a whole generation of leg spinners, not just Aussie leg spinners, but I've spoken to like yourself, Englishmen, Indians who were inspired to bowl leg spin as well.
Well, there's none other than Makoto Taniyama who taught himself how to bowl leg spin by watching Shane Warne's videos on YouTube. So
Japanese Shane Warne.
Yeah. Okay, so on to the nuts and bolts. The main part of the Japan cricket season really is the Japan Cricket League, which for the last, I want to say 4 years, has been 3 divisions. We're not going to go through all 3 divisions. We're going to focus mainly on JCL Division 1. We have a record 31 teams across all 3 divisions. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. I think it's about 31. Yeah.
And that's 12, 10, 9 for this year?
Yep. Yeah. I think you're spot on there.
Yeah. So JCL 1 will have 12 teams this year. So we'll just do a quick rundown of those 12 teams in alphabetical order. We have the Alpha Quashers. We have the Tokyo Falcons. We have the Chiba Sharks. This isn't alphabetical.
It's not alphabetical at all.
Yeah. We have Max Cricket Club. We have the Men in Blue. We have the Tigers. We have Sano, Wyverns, Wombats. We have the Rising Stars and the 2 new teams, Paddy Foleys and Tokyo Rangers. So I think what we'll do, Dukes, we'll run through each team in no particular order, and we can get a bit of a pluses and minuses, strengths and weaknesses of each team. And then I think you want us to pick a full 12 in order of how they'll finish. Is that right?
Well, I just want to, let's compare where you think they'll finish and where I think they'll finish. Neither of us have any idea whatsoever, but it's something to talk about.
It is something to talk about. I do think that the JCL Division 1 is perhaps one of the most unpredictable sporting competitions in the world.
That's the thing. It's hard to pick a winner, really.
So, I never really pin my badge to anyone particularly. I always stop short by saying that I'll predict up until semis, because once you get to the last 4, anything can happen. As your own team showed last year, Dougal, you are sitting here as defending champions, Chiba Sharks, winning captain. So I guess we should start there. How are the Sharks looking this year?
I'd say, that's the hardest job, really, trying to work out where your own team's going to finish, because we all think our team's going to win it, but it's usually not the case, is it? So I think we're reasonably well placed in that we had a very good finish to the season last year. Our top 6 is looking pretty settled, pretty strong. There's probably just a few question marks around our bowling attack, so we really need some of our fast bowlers to step up this year and take a few more wickets. But still got quite a young group. We're possibly the youngest team in it, and we won it last year, so we think we can compete again this year pretty well.
And any new players coming into the group? Any promotions from the second team? I know Chiba Sharks have a long history of promoting youth. Is there anyone coming through that we should keep an eye on?
We're probably losing more players than we're getting. So we're basically working with what we've got. And of course, there are 1 or 2 players in the second level we'll be calling on to step up. But really focusing on our youth, as we do every year. And hopefully we can have another good showing.
Any players we should look out for?
Okay, so we're coming up with 1 player from each team. Who should we look out for? I'm going to put it on this young player, a young fast bowler, Muneeb Disco Siddiq. He's the man I think really needs to step up for the Chiba Sharks. He got in the JCL Team of the Year as quite a young bowler, about a 17-year-old, and hasn't been back since. So, yeah, we're putting it on him to have a breakout season again.
Yeah, okay.
Sharks.
And contribute a little bit with the bat as well. I mean, he's decent lower order hitter, part of the Japan national squad for the last few years as well. And yeah, I think you're probably right. It's time that Muneeb really stepped up. I've also, looking at the Chiba Sharks squad, I think there's a player who scored his first 100 last season, and much like Muneeb, came through the same junior program, and probably time to start scoring runs a bit more consistently, and that's Marcus Thurgate. He obviously led the Japan under-19 team at the World Cup a couple of years ago. I know he's busy with his studies and his part-time work, so he's trying to balance all of that stuff. But I think he showed last year with 100 against the Tigers, I believe it was, what he can do when he's in the right frame of mind. And I think Marcus's batting could play a big part for Chiba Sharks' success.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll move on to, we'll do our rundown of the full table at the end, I think. But we'll
How about we just say where we think they'll finish,
Okay.
and we'll do that for each team.
That seems fine.
Just so.
I'm supposed to be hosting the podcast. What is this? I'm being hijacked.
Okay.
This is nonsense. No, we'll do it your way. All right. The Sharks, I've got the Sharks to finish third.
I don't know where to put us. So I'm saying fourth, same as last year, because I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I see Sharks, like you said, very streaky team. You got on a good roll last year, made the final of the Japan Cup, and at the same time put together a great run of results. So I think if things go your way, you should be able to get enough wins on the board to finish in the top four. And I reckon I'd put you one place higher than last year as defending champions. So I've got you third. Okay. So next I want to talk about the Falcons, since you vanquished the Falcons in the final last year.
Yeah.
I think we can all safely assume that they perhaps overperformed a bit last year. They surprised everyone. Maybe they didn't overperform. Perhaps they just recruited well and they had some players they kept as a bit of a secret. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your expectations for the Falcons?
I don't think they overperformed. I think they're a very, very competitive unit. They bat down all the way to 11. They've got several players that can contribute with the bat. I think 9 of their batsmen scored at least 100 runs last year, which is probably unprecedented. So they've got so many players that can chip in and score runs. They take the game on. Probably their bowling attack doesn't quite match their batting. It's a little bit of a mishmash of medium paces, and they haven't quite settled on their number one spinner, I don't think. It's a little bit of a question mark about the fielding and the age of the group, but I just think they're going to compete and they're going to put themselves in winning positions more often than not. So I think they'll be up there again.
Yeah, I think they will be as well. I've got them to finish second. I think they're, as you say, there's a lot of depth. They remind me a little bit of where Quashers were a few years ago. There's no kind of star in the team, but they've got a lot of people who contribute.
Gee, Safras is going to be on the phone in a minute.
Yeah, you might be right. Safras, yeah, okay. He did average 45 last year. Certainly he's the big name that stands out in their batting lineup, but I think they do have a lot of guys who chip in. So okay, is Safras your player to watch?
Well, yes, he is, but I'm also really keen to see some youth come into that team. So Nikhil Pol, the 14-year-old, I reckon he'll get opportunities this year, and I reckon he's going to be a player. So just one to keep an eye on.
Made his debut last year. Yeah, he's a handy kid, certainly. He's enormous for a 14-year-old.
Strong boy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it's difficult to look past Safras. The 200s he scored last year were both off like 60-odd balls, and he's the player for them that can just take a game away completely and literally did win games on his own last season.
Yeah.
Not getting any younger, but still clearly able to hit them out the middle and hit them a pretty long way. So yeah, where have you got the Falcons then, Dukes?
I've got them somewhere near the top in third.
You got them in third. Interesting. Yep. Okay, so whilst we're on the big hitters, Max CC. How are you feeling about Max this year? Of course, they were unbeaten during the league season last year, won all their games, only to fall over in the semi-final.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Max. Going through a season unbeaten, it was almost too easy for them. And then they come up in a semi-final and they didn't play badly, but it was almost like they just thought they were going to cruise through and win and then win the final. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm seeing that same passion, that same pride in wearing the shirt as I did a few years back. So with possibly losing their best player, Taniyama.
Rumours abounding about Max Taniyama, yeah.
I've got just some question marks opening up on their bowling attack. They gave away about 260 runs against Wyverns last year, if you remember. And I think just a few clubs are looking at them and they're probably quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger from Predator. They're saying, if it bleeds, we can kill it. So,
Oh, God.
I just think clubs are going to come at them pretty hard this year. Of course, look at their top six. You got Supun, Navaratnam, you got Vinay, you got Hanif Khan, you got Amigo Kobayashi. So they're just going to have too much class for most teams, but I just don't think they're going to have everything their own way this year.
Yeah, I think ultimately those batsmen you just mentioned are going to have too much from most people, most teams. They're going to put enough runs on the board to win a lot more than they lose. I agree about the bowling. It is a concern for them, but they have a habit of recruiting quite well. They seem to find players that we might not necessarily know about from surprising spots. They had good depth in their spin bowling stocks anyway. So although Tanny's a loss, Tanny's mainly a loss in his economy rate has always been really good, I think, in the JCL. But in terms of wicket takers, they tend to do all right. And I think they'll be posting plenty of big scores. Just look at their those guys you just mentioned. Look at the strike rates of them. You've got 4 guys in that list with strike rates over 120. And you've got Vinay as just a bit of a run machine. 3 guys who scored over 200 runs last year. So they're going to be there or thereabouts. Who's your player to watch particularly from that group?
It's Supun Navaratnam. He hit 36s. I'll say that again. He hit 36s in the JCL last year. He's worth the price of admission. Go and watch him bat. Mixes in a few low scores amongst his 50s and 100s, but yeah, good to watch.
Interesting. Yeah, I've gone a little bit left field in my player to watch from Max. I've gone with Shubham Shukla, who really caught the eye last year in the JPL. He was given license to just tee off and was scoring a strike rate around 200, I think. He didn't necessarily get a lot of runs, but he got some. His stats in the JCL, weren't amazing, but he was still striking at nearly 140. But he was also entrusted to bowl the final over a few times by Wes Canto. And I think his bowling is a bit of a secret weapon that Max may well end up using a little bit more this year. So I think a player like him, he only played about half of their games last year, but if he's out in the field a bit more, I reckon he could be a bit of an up-and-comer to keep an eye on.
Very handy player. Agreed.
So where have you got them?
I've just got them sliding a little bit. Controversial, but I've got them in 5th place. How about you?
Oh, outside the playoffs. Jeez, you are going to get phone calls. My goodness, I put them top because I put them top every year. So I'm not gonna change the habit of a lifetime. I think they'll, like I said, the run scoring is going to be too good. I don't think they're going to win every game.
Yeah,
but I do think, and I do think they could come unstuck in the playoffs again. But I think the run scoring they've got is going to be enough to put them to the top of the table. All right. Well, most of these games, there's going to be a lot of games played at the Sano International Cricket Ground this year. And of course, they have a home team. So let's go there next. We are in the beautiful town of Sano. Let's talk about Sano Cricket Club. Now, they finished dead last year.
Yeah.
We've just talked about Makoto Taniyama's proposed move.
Yeah.
Looks like he's going to Sano. So what does that mean for them as a club?
Well, it's good news because last year there wasn't much good news to speak of on the field, at least. I watched them play a couple of times. There was a performance against the Alpha Quashers where at the time I described them as, I don't know what the word I used was, but
probably not repeatable.
Not repeatable. And I just saw a lack of effort, a lack of focus from some of their players. And again, we talk about being proud to wear the shirt of your cricket club. And I just wasn't seeing it. So in that match, I think they had 10 players who'd represented Japan before and another former JPL Bowler of the Year as their 11th player. And they got beaten by probably an understrength Alpha Quashers team by about 130 runs. And that just kind of summed up their season.
Was that the midweek game?
It possibly was. But yeah, wasn't impressed. I think they're lacking a bit of leadership. And you don't just point the finger at the captain. Every one of those players needs to look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, is that the best that I can give to this club? And they are going to recruit players this year, I believe. Taniyama is one. but also a couple more coming back. And I think just with that 2 or 3 players coming in, that could really inject that leadership that they need. And all of a sudden, these players who are better suited maybe to be being role players, maybe following that leader, could really come into their own. So I think they can turn it around this year.
Who have you got in mind? Who's your player?
Well, a couple of guys, again, the rumor mill, but there's a fellow they're calling the Japanese Colin de Grandhomme coming over from New Zealand by the name of Reo Sakurano. And I think he's going to inject not just runs and wickets, but hopefully some leadership as well. The other one, if the rumors are correct, is Kazumasa Takahashi.
Taking both my players. You're supposed to name one player. You're supposed to name one player. You've taken two.
I'll take Rio.
Oh, jeez. So I'm really stuck.
Yeah.
Yep. So I guess we can talk a bit more about those two guys. I think you're right. I agree with everything you just said in terms of particularly around the leadership. I think there's a core group of players there who have been playing long enough. They should know enough about the game, and they should be able to really step up and lead a little bit more. I think guys like, they recruited a lot of new players last year, guys like Soto Wada and Kohei Wakita are players who we'd like to be seeing a bit more of. But yeah, Reo Sakurano, people probably won't know much about him. Strapping fast bowler. I think the bowling looked really threadbare, so I think he will definitely add something. And Kazumasa Hiratsuka, as you say, is hopefully coming back, and don't want to put too much pressure on either of these young boys, but I think they are both guys to be keeping an eye on. Of course, the one thing we haven't mentioned is the fairly significant loss of the only batsman they had to score serious runs last year. It's Musashi Yamamoto, who has exchanged his cricket bat for a golf club.
Yeah, the big move's going to go pro at golf.
Yeah.
So
wish him all the best with that.
Won't be scoring runs for Sano Cricket Club this year.
So that is definitely a hole, but they're going to need some guys to step up and score some runs as well. But I think as a side, I don't expect them to finish dead last. What about you? Where have you got them?
No, I've got them. I think those 3 players come in and they're all potentially in the best 10 players in the league. I think they all potentially get into the JCL team of the year. You eject that talent. I'm going glass half full here. I think they play finals.
Really?
I've got them in second place, which is a big call.
That is a huge call. I've got them 9th.
Okay.
So it's a hard competition to predict. One of us is going to be right and one of us is going to be very wrong. Okay, Sano, you heard it here first. Dhugal's got them 2nd. Okay, I'm kind of forgetting who I've looked at now. Let's go to the Alpha Quashers. You just mentioned them. How are we feeling about the Quashers' chances these days?
I'm not as bullish on the Quashers. Again, they've been around the mark for a few years. They compete. They've got a lot of guys who they're kind of all rounders. You'd say they can score the odd run, or they can come on and bowl medium pace. I'm just not sure they're the full package at the moment. With their batting, they rely a lot on their captain, Rohit Kasari. Good player, but he's not going to score runs every week. He'll give you chances. And if we just look at their run scorers from last year, their 2 opening bowlers are 2nd and 3rd on their run scoring list, which suggests to me that
alarm bells are ringing.
Their top 6 really need to step up. And can they step up this year? I'm not convinced, but we'll find out. So who are their match winners? We really need to wait and see.
Yeah, a lot of experience in those players that you mentioned. Rohit, Gurman, Raman Tanwar, Srini as well is there. And these guys have been around a long time, but we kind of know what we're going to get from those guys. They're reliable, they're hardworking, they'll give it their best, but they're probably not, with the bat at least, going to take the game away from you. Rohit can do that, but they're going to need some more guys to put runs on the board, I think, to win a lot of games and to win enough games to make finals. Personally, I don't see them making finals. I think they had their golden chance 2 years ago when they just fell short in the final against the Tigers.
Should have won it.
I think this time around, they will be very comfortably mid-table. I don't expect them to be as as poor as they were last year. They really struggled last year. I think that was just the Vinay vacuum that was left behind, and I think they'll be a bit better prepared this time around. Player to watch, I'm going to go first this time since you hijacked both my players last time around. I'm going to go with Aditya Phadke, who made his debut last year and picked up a half century in one of the games. I think possibly that game you were referring to, actually, against Sano. He scored 65. He's only, 16 years old, and a player of genuine talent. Played in the South Kanto Super Kings team as well. So I think he'll be my player to look out for. He's still young, but I reckon he will be a fairly key part of the Quashers batting lineup.
Yeah, fair enough. I completely agree. I'd also keep an eye on Noor Ibrahim, who I think could even be their best batsman. So they probably need to give him that opportunity batting at number 3 and just keep him there, see if he can clock up a 200 or 300 run season.
So I've got them in 7th. Yourself?
I've got them in 9th.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's been an interesting season for the Quashers. Generally a better T20 outfit than 40 overs, but they'll be looking to bounce back after, I think, by their own standards, a disappointing year. Okay, another team that is perennially fighting to make finals, but all too often falling short. The Wyverns. Wyverns Cricket Club. How do we feel about the Wyverns' chances this year? Anything new and exciting around that club?
I don't think there'll be much new. I think they're going to rely on their tried and trusted formulas. But yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. You've got your batting, you've got your Wyverns batting, and you've got your Wyverns bowling. And they're two different beasts. So the batting, top 6 I love. You've got Rahul Khanna, you've got Miyuchi, you've got Shogo Kimura, Masaki Kawashima, probably, Tomoki Ota. You've got Big Boudica coming back, I believe, this season. Now, that batting lineup is capable of putting big scores on the board consistently. Their fielding, I love their fielding. We all know about the Wyverns fielding, especially their ground fielding. Their catching's not as good. But their bowling attack is where they fall down. So if you take Kohei Kubota out of that bowling attack, you have probably a Division 2 bowling attack. And that's the challenge for them, is improving their bowling. If they could do that, they could play finals.
Yeah. Don't disagree with a lot of that. I think they have a habit of doing funny things with their batting order. Players seem to move around, chop and change. For a long time, they looked like they had arguably the best opening bat in Japan in Wataru Miyuchi, who spent most of the season batting 4, 5, 6 last year.
Madness.
Very, very strange. Again, just looking at their stats from last year, no one in their leading 7 run scorers has a strike rate, or they got one player with a strike rate over 100, and that's Miyuchi. And the rest aren't even over 80. So that's a bit of a concern. They're not getting their runs quickly enough, maybe a bit of a fear of getting out in that side. Which they could do with getting over. But, they do have players who have been around a long time who, again, like the Quashers, we know what we're going to get from Rahil, from Miyuchi, from Ota. You kind of know what they're going to deliver. But with the standard, I think, increasing in the JCL Division 1, are they going to have enough? They perennially seem to finish 5th, just outside the playoff places. And I'm not convinced they've got enough to break that habit. I've got them finishing 6th.
Yeah, me too. I've got them 6th.
My God, we agree.
The first time ever.
This is unbelievable. Life's so boring when we agree. Okay, so who's your player then?
Oh, you mentioned him already. Their best player is Miyuchi, and he needs to bat. He needs to open the batting and score 400 runs this year. What was he doing coming in 5 or 6? No one knows. So I think he has a big season this year.
Yeah, I think the other player I'd be keeping an eye on is Rahil Khanna. I know he's been around forever, and as I said, we know kind of what we're going to get from him. But one thing that Rahil hasn't done is score 100. And I saw him last weekend at the national squad trials, and Rahil seems quite focused this year. I spoke to him on the podcast, and he's keen to get himself among the elite of Japan cricket's batsmen. He'll keep twirling away with those dodgy leg spinners and pick up a truck of wickets, I'm sure. But I think it's his batting for Raheel. I would really like to see him registering that big score. He scored 4 half centuries last year with a high score of 66. But I know he's been working out. He's been in the gym. And I think maybe his improved fitness will lead to a ability to stay at the crease a bit longer.
That's been a big criticism of him. Yeah. I think you made the comment, he's one batsman who looks good at the start of his innings and
so he seems to get worse the longer he bats.
Yeah, you're supposed to work your way into the innings and he kind of works his way out of the innings. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we wish him well. He's looking fit.
He's looking in the best shape I've seen him in.
Yeah.
So, I think he'll be one to keep an eye on. Okay, so last year was perhaps a bit of a disappointing year for the 2020 champions, the Tigers. So how are we feeling about them this year? Where do we think they're going to go?
Yeah, look, it was a bit of an off year for the Tigers last year. They'd lost some games that you just would not expect them to lose. I think there was one to the Rising Stars, credit to the Rising Stars. But we say it was an off year. They still finished third, I think it was. So if that's an off year and you're still finishing third and competing in a semi-final, it suggests that you're a pretty good team. Now, the average age of the team, again, they're one of those teams, they're not getting any younger by the look of it, although they have injected a little bit of youth within their fast bowling stocks. And their bowling attack does need to improve, especially their fast bowlers. They really need to find that combination of 2 or 3 fast bowlers that are going to get them through the season, really utilise that new ball. Now, I've got a stat for you here on probably the best, we say he's the best player in the competition, Sabarish Ravichandran. Last year's runs, 150 runs and 7 wickets. That's not the Sabarish that we know.
No.
So it would be unusual if
he averaged less than 20 last year.
It would be unusual if he had such a poor season by his standards again this year. So you could probably double or triple those figures. In Anil Kumar, they found someone at the top of the order who could bat time as well. So
yeah, I was impressed with him.
I think there's a lot of upside to the Tigers for this year.
Interesting. I don't.
Tell me more.
I'm definitely going to get phone calls on this one. No, I fear for them a bit. I agree with what you say about Sabarish. I do think that he will improve on where he was last year. I mean, he was in blazing form in T20 stuff last year, but his 40-over game seemed to be a little bit off the pace. I expect that will correct itself, but I just don't see enough superstars, not even superstars. I mean, we've got Piyush Kumbhare is a very handy cricketer, and he contributes. But does he win matches with the ball? He usually bats fairly low down, 7 or 8, and is one of the guys who scores a heftier strike rate than most of the others. But again, just a 1 half century last year. I fear that they just don't have enough in the batting or the bowling to really support Sabarish. I've always felt that an off season for Sabarish or even an off day can be a real problem for them. And they've got some honest players who can stick around and fight. And they, as a club, I think that's probably the biggest thing they've got going for themselves, is they've really got a lot of heart and fight in them as a team. But again, I'm just looking at some of the other teams and I think they might just have a bit more depth. So where have you got them finishing?
Oh, I've got them top. I think they're the team to beat. I think they have a good year. Their two spinners are elite, and I think they're going to trouble a lot of teams.
I've got them 5th.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think they've always made finals. I don't think they've ever missed out. So I think perhaps they can use this podcast as a bit of motivation. Now, the team I've got replacing them is definitely going to raise some eyebrows.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the Men in Blue.
The Men in Blue?
I think the Men in Blue are going to make finals.
Wow.
I know this might be a little bit controversial. I think they finished the season really strongly last year after an iffy start. I know they They got home against the Sharks in game 1, but then they went off the boil a bit, and then they finished pretty well.
Went off the boil. They went to sleep for half the season.
Well, exactly. But I don't expect that to happen again. I think that they've got, as a club, they've just got such an enormous player base. And I think that they are a club that does very well to attract the amount of talent that they do. And ultimately that cream will rise to the top. They were winners of, did they win Division 2 and 3 last year, I think? So there's obviously some good players down the divisions who may well be capable of coming in and just supplementing that Division 1 side to the point where they've got enough depth to get themselves out of trouble with the bat if they struggle early. And they've got options with the ball. They've got a couple of guys who have done reasonably well over the last few years. They've got a top 5 who score enough runs. And I think do you know what? We didn't do a player to look out for from the Tigers. Gonna get in trouble.
Oh, you're going to rewind?
Yeah, we should rewind.
So Barish,
Okay.
500 runs and 30 wickets.
Piyush, 500 wickets and 30 runs. Okay. But yeah, just looking at the men in blue team, I think that they do have a potential superstar in their team in Navi Negi, who probably didn't play as many games as they would have liked last year. He only played the 5 matches. I think if they get him out on the park a lot, I think the men in blue could well be pushing for a top 4 spot. Are you going to disagree with me?
Oh, look,
There sure.
the opening bowling combination, Naveen Negi and Vivek Singh, is fantastic.
Explosive.
It is explosive. It's exciting. How many times, this is the question, how many times are we going to see those two open the bowling together this year? That's the only question for me. I like, from what I saw last year, Abhi Diwan and Ankit Panwar are really exciting middle order batsmen as well. So there's some talent there. I think you mentioned their second 11 and third 11 premierships last year. I just think they're one of a couple of teams, and I put Sano in the same basket. I'm not sure if they're selecting their best 11 players every week. And it sounds funny, but I mean, just keep it simple. At your selection table, just pick your best 11 players. Not certain we saw the best 11 men in blue players out there in every match last year. I could be wrong. The other question mark I have is just the depth of their bowling. When you go past Vivek Singh and Negi, who are the next best bowlers? Are they capable of restricting teams to under 200 runs? Do they have batsmen that are going to score, going to have a 200 or 300 run season? I'm just not sure. There's just a few too many questions for me.
Well, you've ignored Hitesh Akabari, who I think was very unlucky to miss out on the Team of the Year last year as a backup bowler. So I think he plays most of the game.
Wiley, yeah.
He is wily. So yeah, I take your point. Well, let's see what they've got in these players down the divisions and if they can contribute.
Some talent there.
So where have you got them?
I have them 7th.
Okay.
Yourself?
I've got them 4th.
Okay.
I've got them sneaking into playoffs.
There might only be like one game in it.
Well, this is it. Between we'll get to the last few teams in a minute, but between like 4th and 9th, I think it's going to be
tight.
Really tight.
Yeah.
Okay, so another team that perhaps surprised a little bit last year were the Rising Stars. The previous year was their first in the division, and they lost every game, or at least they didn't win the game. I think they may have had one washed out. But last year they picked up, came a little bit by surprise. Again, as you mentioned, they got that great result beating the Tigers. How do we feel about the Rising Stars this year?
Yeah, there was a lot to like about them last year, and that new ball combination of Abu Hasnat and Armin Buyan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but anyway.
We're just butchering names up in the division here.
Yeah. They really caused problems for a lot of teams. We saw the Tigers get bowled out for, what was it, 120, 130. So that was a surprise to everyone, and well done. Now, the question for me is, where are the runs going to come from? So we had, the old timers, Saeed, Ashik Chowdhury. They come out in the middle order and they tee off. They're ultra aggressive batsmen. But where are these top three? Where's your Alex Patmore? Where's your Anil Kumar? Where's your Miyauchi, who's just going to bat through an inning?
Where's your Dhugal Bedingfield?
No, they don't want to. They want one of them. But now that's the question for me: where are the runs going to come from? So I like them, but I'm just worried that then they're going to lose games that they should win.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their stats here. No one who played more than 2 games averaged more than 24. So that is an alarm bell. In terms of players to watch, you mentioned Udaiba Saeed. I think he's definitely one to keep an eye on. And, we see it a bit in the JCL. If one guy can get away, it can sometimes be enough, particularly batting first. If you can end up one guy, even if he's batting at 5, 6, 7, Safra has been a master at it, just gets away, posts a big score. It can be so deflating for the other team. They just struggle to get out of the blocks. And I think that's where the Rising Stars have a bit of potential to cause problems for teams. So he'd be my player to watch. What about yourself?
I've got Armin Bhuyan, the opening bowler. I thought was really impressive last year. I think he can take probably 20 wickets this year if he gets on a roll. So he's mine.
Yeah, averaged 1.75 at the bat, so I don't think he's going to be contributing much at that side of things.
Yeah.
but yeah, okay. Cool, so where have you got them?
I've got them 11th.
Interesting.
Near the bottom.
I got them 10th. I think that they'll, I think they'll build on what they had last year, but with extra teams in the division, I still see them struggling to break into the established ranks, if that makes sense. I think there's a fairly core 9-10 teams who kind of know the division pretty well. I think they're still getting to grips with that. So in that, one of the best established teams would have to be the Tokyo Wombats. Now, for the last few years, I've had a habit of thinking they're going to struggle. And yet every year they get to a point in the season where they could make finals and then they end up finishing 6th behind Wyverns. Of course, last year they had 2 of the most productive batsmen, the best opening partnership in the league, in Alex Patmore, who you mentioned before, and Richie Bracefield, who also scored over 350 runs. Patmore scored over 500 runs last year.
Average 100.
Average 106. So how do we feel about the Wombats this year?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Their 2 best players opened the batting. They both had standout seasons last year. Can they do it again this year? And if they don't do it, is someone else going to step up and fill that void? I'm not sure. You've got a bowling attack, probably missing a strike bowler and missing a frontline spinner. There's a lack of depth with the batting after Patmore and Bracefield. So I think they've got some issues, and they need to recruit, and they need to recruit aggressively. I'd like it if they had a second 11 as well that they could draw on to top up their first 11 with. But yeah, I think they're gonna compete, but more often than not, they might not get across the line in some of these games.
I was just looking at some of these stats, and I was looking at the averages, and I thought, look at this, Jared Shearer. I know he's getting on a bit, but he's averaged 34 last season. That's not a bad effort. And then I looked across the columns, and I saw he had a total of 34 runs. And a few not outs. So
yeah,
perhaps not as much to be excited about as I first thought. Yeah, I happen to know that their leading batsman may well be going back to the UK for a fair chunk of the summer holidays, which he hasn't done for the last 2 years, which I think has helped them out quite a bit. And so there may well be a bit of a void when he takes his holiday. And when I first wrote down my order of finishing, I had them a bit higher, but when I remembered that, they dropped a few places because I think maintaining that, he sets the tone. He bats at the top. He's so hard to get out. Last year, 550s, 100. No matter whether they're one of the best teams at chasing in the league. A lot of teams don't chase down targets, and they do.
Yeah.
I think last year they chased down 230 for 1 in one game. with Patmore and Bracefield both got in and went to town. So as a side, I think that says a lot about the quality they have at the top. And when they can do that, it hides some of the failings that might be lower down.
Yeah, sure.
So apart from those two, because it's boring, who's your player to watch?
I think Muhammad Ali, I think he might be captaining this year even. And I think he's capable of just floating in and potentially stinging other teams with his batting and his bowling. And who knows, he might be an astute captain.
Yeah. Do you think he's got the knockout punch?
Absolutely. Yeah.
To make the knockout players?
Yeah. Well, if he has a good season, we could be talking about him as one of the heavyweights of the JCL.
We got to stop. This is too awful. But yes, I agree. I like him as a player. I think he's someone who definitely has potential to do something. I'd like to see him show a bit more aggression with the bat. I wonder if he's a player, as a strike rate of just 65 last year, is perhaps a bit worried about what's to come as well as the bats within himself.
Sure.
Because I think I've seen him in T20 go pretty hard. So he's an interesting one to watch. And I know he does a bit with the ball as well. So yeah, he'd be my player to watch behind the obvious opening batsman. So where have you got them finishing?
I have them in 10th.
Okay. That's pretty low. I got them 8th. I think that they will have enough to be above a couple of these guys. Okay, so that leaves the two new boys. The newly promoted teams left till last, largely because I know the least about them. So let's start with a returning, what would I call them? A returning heavyweight. I mean, Paddy Foleys used to be, very much a team that featured in the latter stages of the tournament. They won it, I want to say,
2014.
Amal Silva.
JCL Division 1 champions.
Yeah, so after a bit of time in the wilderness, they're back. So how do we feel about Paddy Foleys? They won Division 2?
No, they finished top and they lost the semi-final to
the
eventual champions Bennett Blue.
Of course they did. Yeah. I knew that.
They were unbeaten going into that semi-final.
That's right. They did a max.
Yeah, they did a max. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So go on then. Tell us all about the Paddy Foleys and what we can expect from them.
Well, there's a lot of, let's call it experience in that team. A few aging veterans, war horses. Guys have been plying their trade in the JCL for a long time. So with that experience, with that firepower, there's a lot of aggressive batsmen in that lineup. They can really blow teams away in Division 2. There's a caveat there. They take the game on and they get away with hitting the ball in the air, aggressive batting in Division 2. Is that going to work in Division 1? That's the question. Is their bowling attack a Division 1 bowling attack? Again, there's some guys who run in with a little bit of pace, some wily spinners, but is that going to cut it with the demanding nature of Division 1? Is their fielding going to be up to it, or are teams just going to hit and run to them? That's the question I have. So I'm not sure. I think they're going to take the game on again, but I'm just a little bit worried the gameplay's not going to come off in Division 1. So
yeah, I'm looking at their strike rates of their batting lineup, and their top 6 leading run scorers all struck at above 100, with a guy called Mohammed Adil in 6 matches striking at 180, with an average of 92. So he must have a bit about him.
He swings the bat, that's for sure. Yeah.
Interesting. So who's your player to watch?
Well, they need youth. And I've gone with a young leg spinner by the name of Roshan Dhugal. We all like a Nepali leg spinner.
We do.
And this guy really impressed me when I saw him play last year. So he's my player to watch. They need a bit of class, and they need youth coming to that side. So young Dhugal is my man to watch.
Okay, well, I've gone with a fairly boring selection of Salman Khawaja. I know Salman's had a bit of time in Sano cricket club in the past. He's a man who, hits the ball pretty hard. Stand and deliver type player, I think. And rolls his arm over as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he copes with the step up. in the division. And so where have you got them?
Last.
You've got them dead last. That is interesting. I do not have them dead last. I have them second to last.
Okay.
I'm not expecting great things from the newly promoted teams, as we will discover. And that's, honestly, it's probably a bit unfair. Truth is, I just don't know much about them. Haven't seen a lot of them. Paddy's, Prashant Kale is, of course, there. The old stager, he's been around the blocks, and I expect him to be pretty key to their performances. An old teammate of yours, of course.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how he copes with his return to Division 1 after a few years out. I think they will be pretty dependent on him.
Mm.
Okay, so the last team, the Tokyo Rangers, a relatively new club, been around a few years now. They've got teams in each of the divisions. Have they got the threes yet?
They've got two teams.
They've got
They'll be
two
in Division 1 and 2 this year.
And there's a lot of names in that team, guys who've been around at different clubs. Some perhaps more known for their T20 exploits, but some handy cricketers, and I think they'll be an interesting addition to Division 1. What do you think?
Yeah, interesting's a good word. They're probably still finding their feet as a club and trying to work out what kind of club they want to be and what they stand for. So moving up to Division 1, I think they have a vague idea that they want to win Division 1, and they've worked out that they need to recruit better players to do that. So the current strategy is to basically tap into the Sri Lankan community in Japan. And
Not a bad idea, that.
no, it's not the worst idea because there's some very good Sri Lankan cricketers floating around. They've already had contributions from guys like Melinda Sanjay, who took 7 for 16 in the Division 2 final last year, and they still couldn't win.
And they still didn't win it. Yeah.
They've got some pretty good talent on the list. Now, again, stepping up from Division 2 to Division 1. Division 2 is not Division 1. So where they probably blew some teams away last year, is that going to work this year? I'm not sure. There's probably some issues over their leadership and their game plan. Who's driving the bus? Who's going to bring together, who's going to galvanize this disparate group of mercenaries into this elite, tough, hardened fighting unit that's going to compete for Division 1 glory? Who's that going to be? I'm not sure.
I think traditionally we've seen teams come up, and when there's been two teams come up, one tends to do quite well and one really falls flat. I'm thinking about when MIB and Falcons both came up together. I think MIB finished 5th or 6th that year, and Falcons lost every game. But then Falcons have obviously picked up since then, as we discussed previously. And then Rising Stars came up, lost every game, and then started to build. You saw Sano come up and struggle. So yeah, there's a definite thing. There is a definite gap between Division 2, Division 3, and that's why I've got Rangers finishing dead last, unfortunately for them. That said, they have more individuals to keep an eye on. You mentioned a couple, Mali, Niranjan. Anyone who watched the JPL last year will know about him. One of the cleanest hitters of a ball in Japan, but he's usually just there for a good time rather than a long time. And likewise, Umer Bhutto. Now, I'll tell you a story about Umer Bhutto. As you may know, Dougal, I've only played 3 JCL matches in my time, in my 8 years in Japan. On 2 of those occasions, I had the misfortune of bowling at Bhutto, and he scored 100 both times. I don't know whether that says more about my bowling or his batting, but I'm going to put him down as a player to watch because I know that he is, again, someone who can hit the ball very, very hard, very, very far. Be interesting to see if he can do it consistently against Division 1 bowlers. So who are you asking to keep an eye on?
Oh, definitely Malith Niranjan. I thought he was the best player in Division 2 last year. There's no way he should have been playing in Division 2. He's one of the most exciting players in Japan. He comes off a short run and bowls very fast left arm stuff. And as you say, he hits at miles. So he's one of those players you would pay money to watch.
There's another guy, just honourable mention is Sanjay Yapavandara.
Yeah.
Is another very handy player who's a feature in the East Kanto
Absolutely.
Sunrisers JPL team.
There's enough talent there.
Yeah, so I mean, I've got them dead last, but actually having talked about them, maybe I think that's a bit harsh. But you don't have them in the bottom two.
I've got them in 8th, and I think they could 8th plus or minus a lot. They could finish where you say they're going to finish, or they could be knocking on the door of the semi-finals, depending on how things go. And if they can really integrate all of these players and keep everyone happy, we'll see how it goes.
So come on then, give me a rundown, 1 to 12. Just quickly recap.
Am I 1 to 12?
Yes, please.
This is not worth the paper it's written on, mate.
The paper it's written on doesn't look in great shape to me.
No, it's not. Okay. Tigers, Sano, Falcons, Sharks. That's the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
They've got Max, Wyverns, MIB, Rangers, Alpha Quashers, Wombats, Rising Stars, Paddies.
Okay. I suppose I better give mine then.
Yep.
Just to hang myself out there. That is how you become great. I've got Max, Falcons, Sharks, and MIB as our top 4, with Tigers, Wyverns, Quashers, Wombats, Sano, Rising Stars from 4 to 10, and then the 2 new boys bringing up the rear, Paddies and Rangers in 11 and 12.
Yep.
It's going to be an interesting season, isn't it?
We'll just see how wrong that we're going to be.
I wonder if any of these are right. Maybe we should do an end of season podcast and see if we actually landed any of these. Usually I get one right, and with 12 teams to pick from, I've got a greater chance of getting one in the right place.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful. So yeah, we'll just cast a quick eye to Division 2, Division 3, more to mention that there's a couple of new clubs that have come in.
A couple of new clubs. The Kawasaki Knight Riders are bringing in 2 teams to Division 2 and Division 3, as are the Tokyo Titans. Both those clubs are quite new clubs, but they've done some very good stuff. They've got teams in the under-15 leagues who are doing really well. KKR, as they're often known.
Women's team.
They've entered a women's team. So, really well run. And you've got Finn AI, who's been a central part of that club. He's done a really good job. So
I think it's exciting to see new teams passing the strict requirements to make it into the JCL. So, good luck to those guys, and we hope to see them pushing on the door for Division 1 come the end of the season. Dukes, thanks very much. We'll probably do this again later in the year. We've got several other competitions to preview, not least the Japan Premier League, the Japan Futures League, which we haven't really touched on, the new under-23s competition. Not to mention the Japan Cup. Yeah, there's a lot of cricket happening. So we'll look forward to seeing you again. Thanks a lot for coming on the podcast, and good luck for the season.
My pleasure.
Well, that concludes episode 1 of season 2 of the Japan Cricket Podcast. I hope you enjoyed Dougal and my thoughts on the Japan Cricket League Division 1 season ahead. And if you really enjoyed it, it would be wonderful if you could leave a rating, even better, a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever else you listen to the show. Just helps other people to find it. If you have the energy and you want to follow me on Instagram, then the Japan Cricket Podcast account is still up and running, and I'll be posting little previews of each show. And if you send me enough messages, I may even start up a Twitter account or a Facebook page if I have the energy, but I wouldn't hold your breath. In the meantime, enjoy the season ahead, good luck, and hopefully I will see you all on the ground sometime soon. Thanks.